being used in ways that are manipulative, and psychologically it's caused a division that's very disheartening. I think we could be inculcated with the disheartenment, or what we could do is do what we're talking about, which is a call to action. Getting out, for instance, the coloring books is not a bad idea. It can help, or some other more salient way that could speak to you about your nature, whether the medium is a performing arts or a visual arts or the written word, because our words have meaning and power. So I think we are in a ripe time where we can activate and utilize art to really shape groupthink in an empowering way. And I would like to see that be something that we make a commitment to.
Great. That sort of leads to my next question. What makes art making so valuable in our modern times? And I'll start with Matt with that.
Sure. It's the practice of taking something from your internal world and putting it out for everybody. It's the sharing, and it's the communicating ideas amongst each other through your art practice that stimulates the conversations that we've been talking about with each other. And it's also the personal action, right? Art making is something, again, doesn't require a lot of money, it doesn't require a degree, it doesn't require anything but the desire to go do it, right?
Yes.
And I think it also, one of the things that creative practice also tends to have is there's been studies shown that it reduces anxiety, and it decreases depression, it increases sense of well-being, and decreases sense of being isolated, and all those type of things that really start to get at you when you are into the things that are beating down. The weight of the world is upon your shoulders can be a very heavy and lonely place to be, right? But we're all here for each other, and that's what community activation is. And if that's done through creative practice, which is, art doesn't happen and have a community voice unless there's a community behind it that believes in what's happening and wants it to succeed and knows that, in and above what it is, just the fact that it's being done is ultimately what I think is important. And it's what's so great about the art that's out there, is that every single person in this room is going to create something different and have a different voice to contribute. Every single one of you. And that's fantastic. That's the only way we get to share what we're feeling and how we're interacting and living with each other, and what we can do for moving forward with our community to where we feel like we can still attack the problems of the world with a zest so that we can actually start to make some change for good. Yeah. Damn it.
Deborah?
So I have always been interested in the meditative aspects of art. Early on, I joined a group, meetup group, Contemplative Photography. It was very, very interesting. It was a little too zen for me. I have a lot of energy. And so I was looking for, so how do I take a lot of this raw energy and power and channel it so that I can use my creativity, use business background, and also help create an aesthetic that hasn't been viewed before, with a different perspective. And so when we achieve something, endorphins, those feel-good endorphins, are released when you're creating art, when you're achieving. I'm like, hey, give me more of those endorphins, right? They feel great. They make you want to do more, and also brings a quiet to yourself internally. Because as Michael referenced before, and Matt, we have so many inbounds on news and media. I mean, lots of stress. It's like we're stick figures and all these arrows are coming in. And our job is to figure out, well, how do I manage all of this and still be who I am and still be authentic? And I find, for me, on a personal basis, that creating enables me to reveal more of my authenticity. It's enabled me to bring together tech, business, and art into an aesthetic that impacts people and piques their curiosity and starts conversation. And conversation can lead to collaboration, which can lead to greater synchronicity across the group, bringing people together. We have gotten to the point of yelling at each other or tweet wars. Let's be old school. Have a conversation. Imagine, I don't know about you, but I get thanked when I return phone calls because people don't expect it anymore. So if we go inward and allow ourselves to experience our creative practice, regardless of what it is, we are raising the bar for the quality of our level of interactions.
Well said.
Thank you.
Very nice said. Michael.
So in our modern times, and I think both of you really eloquently referenced this, because we are so information overloaded, what I've noticed is when I sit with someone and I invite them to map out a dream in symbols and to draw it, or when I invite them to dialogue with an issue, literally like their script writing, they dialogue with whether it's pain or addiction, or they're dealing with anxiety, they have this dialogue in this. And what I notice is the following happens. Their breathing becomes more regulated. Their fight or flight response gets activated into what we call a relaxation response. Their extremities get warmer because they're not overly processing in a way that they're overstimulated, and their heart rate is overactive and their blood pressure is up. And so we begin to see literally experiences of people calming down, and they get connected to things of meaning to themselves and to the community. And their community might be their family, it might be their work community, but they think about not just me, but me and we. And there is this reciprocal relationship, which I find is not only inspiring to witness, literally I get to witness this with people, but what I get to notice is that how it goes back to what we talked about earlier, the sweet spot. And that becomes the bridge upon which we begin. Just those little exercises, artistic exercises, where people begin to say how they can use their strengths and their awareness and their insights, and I might even say intuition and wisdom, to come up with their own solutions. So the focus doesn't be put on me as if I have this commodity on the market of the answers of life, because I don't. My credentials don't give me that. What I do is I help people listen to themselves. And that is what art can do, as much as what I do in my consultation room, whether it's with an individual or a group. And if that can happen for free, why not? Why not?
All right. So the final question. It's a fun question. Describe your aha art consciousness moment, where suddenly realization or inspiration hit you or something for the very first time. I'm going to start with Deborah first.
Yes.
You're an artist.
Okay. Put me on the spot. So I'm going to tell you a story. I met a business colleague at a conference, and we developed a friendship, and her family's on the East Coast, and she was out visiting, and I had her over to my house for dinner. Her name is Joanne. And Joanne walked in, and she saw these photos on the walls, and she's a New Yorker, so I don't need to say anything else, right? And she's like, oh, well, who was the artist, where did you get the photographs, blah, 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 how much did you pay, where can I buy some? And I'm like, whoa. Usually I am not at a loss for words. However, at that moment, I disappeared. I was stunned. I didn't realize that what I was doing aesthetically could have an impact that way. And Joanne's son is a severe diabetic. He was doing fundraising for St. Barnabas Medical Center in New Jersey for the diabetic unit. So, I mean, I was so overwhelmed with her kind words that I said, hey, how about I donate something? And, you know, he can sell it, help raise some funds. Well, I did donate a photo, and actually it's the Illusions photo that's hanging in the Farmer Gallery. It's on the wall of framed photographs. And the hospital decided they weren't going to sell it. They wanted to put it in their unit. So it is hanging in the lobby of the diabetic unit at St. Barnabas Medical Center in New Jersey. And I had to sit back and go, okay, what's happening is bigger than what you ever thought. And I'm a pretty big dreamer, let me tell you. Those people who know me, they know. And it struck me that by bringing together a multitude of energy around photography and philanthropy, because in my heart, I'm a humanitarian. I care deeply about people. I want to help make a difference. And my big aha moment was, wow, I can make a difference. And it just, it is something I will never forget. That moment of, okay, this is not just for fun anymore. You can do something with it.
Thank you. Matt, quickly, a minute or so.
Say quickly?
We're running out of time.
Okay, fine. So I've always had a predilection to curiosity, and I've always had, I guess I call it, I don't want to make fun of OCD, but I have this compulsion to arrange things, right? And it gives me a deep sense of satisfaction when I do so. And so, right?
I agree.
And so, and going back to what I said at the very beginning, where you can make a buck out of doing what you love, that's literally what I do, right? I get to spend my time with art, arranging it how I think it should go, and talking with the artist about the presentation. And that gives me so much ultimate joy and satisfaction.
Not a bad job.
Right? And so my aha moment came when the first time I actually got to do this with somebody. I was a friend of mine who was curating shows. His name is Johnny Davis, Artwork SF. Much prop to them. They gave me my start and did a lot of good for a lot of artists. Johnny gave me the opportunity to do an installation because somebody flaked on him. And so I jumped at the chance to do it because I always like to do something that's different. I'm a curious kind of guy. Right? And so, but talking with the artists about their presentation also led into conversations about what their work was about, why they did it, which led to studio visits, which led to this whole immersion into the conversation about why artists create, right? And so when I go into a studio and I talk to an artist, why are you creating? And it's this whole story about what they see in their perspective on the world, and it gives me a chance to also reflect and integrate anything in their experience that might resonate with me. And so the aha moment was, there are people out there that like to think this way, and I want to be around these folks and do that. So, there you go.
All right.
Wow, that's powerful. It's inspirational in terms of pairing two pieces together of yourself. So my aha moment is around music, and it's been sort of a theme throughout my life. And it really came together for me when I was deciding to marry what I was doing therapeutically with myself as a vocalist who I had divorced myself from a long time ago because I didn't think the two worked well together. And for a variety of reasons, it was difficult for me to do both, having a practice at night. And I found a way. And that moved into, that was in 2015, and I started to do singing for charity. And I sang in New York City. I did a cabaret called My Analyst Told Me.
You did.
And it was fun to talk about what it's like to be a therapist. I've been sitting for 30 years listening to people. 30 years. And that moment, it healed me because I had separated from myself. And that, it gave me a connection of a dot, of a part of me that needed to express what was in me. And then that now has moved into, I've nearly finished the first act of a musical around being a therapist.
All right.
And my aha came together when we did the first demo of some of our songs. And it was a moment that has touched me deeper than I can put into words.
That's afterwards.
So thank you.
All right, thank you, panelists, for addressing the questions tonight. Before we do Q&A, we have something for the audience, a challenge for you, actually. It's a call for action. You're to do 20 related art activities in 2020. Are you up for the challenge?
Yes.
All right. So we'll now do Q&A. For Q&A, you'll use the mic here. Come up, state your name, and address your question to the panelists of your choice. All right? Yeah, Jill. You want to come up? Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, why not?
this is for Deborah.
All right.
So, San Francisco Art and Tech. Thank you all, by the way. A sellout on January 6th for art. There's hope for 2020. There really is. Thank you. The work I do is because I care deeply about art and people who make art and people who love art. But how do we really connect to the art unaware? Because all of us have committed, most of us, for the 2020 challenge, 20 pieces of art of some kind this year. How do we reach into those who haven't had art education or don't know how important it is? There are benefits of it. They are receiving it. Their lives are better because of it. But how do we make them aware so they support back to us? We have the first generation of full-grown adults that didn't really have art education. They're still learning from it, but they don't even have the vocabulary to know it's art that is making their life better. So could you talk about that?
Yes. So, and I'll tell a story. When I was working with special needs children, what I used to do was get posters, big posters, with lots of stuff, lots of different things. So, that was pop art. And then utilize that and wrote questions. I guess it's like those old highlights magazines. How many fish can you find? How many women are wearing high-heeled shoes? How many men have hats? But it forced the children, and these were very special needs children, to get outside of themselves and become aware that just by looking at a poster or looking at TV or reading a book or going to make your own poster, and I challenge these kids to pick a song they like and to make something. They could, I didn't care what they used, toothpicks, Q-tips, popsicle sticks, cardboard, bricks. Each one of these kids, and these kids could not survive in the normal school. Okay, their next step was juvie. Each one of them took their favorite song. They wrote the words out. Okay, reinforce writing, reinforce English, right? Reinforce music, melody. Then they described the song in some form. I'll never forget one boy, I think Chapel of Love. There was a song, Chapel of Love. And so he actually took all these sugar cubes and built this elaborate chapel. And he even used sugar cubes for the people inside. So there's multiple ways to connect people that we can help with art education. One is meetups. Expose people to something in a fun way. Connecting with the schools, because the schools are running out of money, right? So we want to go into the schools. Using various public forums like this, because everyone in here is hearing the message and can take it back and say to your school, hey, you know, I want to help put an art program in place. I'm a parent here, I'm willing to show up half a day a week and work with kids in 5th grade. They would love it. So those are just, and you know, I could talk about this, because I'm an idea machine, so I could just spew all kinds of ideas. But those are a few ways to get started, and to hook into corporations that support school and use art education as a vehicle.
All right, thank you, Deborah. Any more questions? Yes, come up. Say your name.
I'm Eris. So my question is, I'm wondering what your own definition of art is to you and how that's shaped your career as an artist.
Any particular panelist right there? Michael or
Eris, who
would you like that
who are
direct that
you
question
directing
to?
the question?
Is it open?
Like answering it?
Who wants to take a stab at it?
Go ahead, Michael.
Okay. Wow, you know, there's so much. First of all, thank you for considering me an artist. That's a very lovely compliment. And it's nice to embrace that. You know, for me, when I look at art, when I hear art, when I read, I specifically look at what it moves inside of me. Because music, sound, moved me, the first sort of genre that really spoke to me was soul, Motown. It was, my body moved, my heart moved, the words made sense to me differently, and I found myself wanting to sing. And so that became sort of, I wanted music that moved me. I didn't want to be beige. Not that I'm beige, but I didn't really want to be beige in my emotional experience. So that's a little bit about what my influence was.
You want to take a stab at it? Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
Yeah. I guess I consider art, or the practice of art, the creation of something that didn't exist until it was made, right then. So from that standpoint, everything around us is art, right? Everything was concepted by somebody. Everything, so not only visual arts or dance, but industrial arts, material arts. All these type of creative expressions, some of them have purely practical applications, but all of them have some inherent quality to them that makes them, if you just look at it for its aesthetic sensibilities, art. And so from that standpoint, man, I guess I look at everything as art. I define everything as art, and I try to live with everything as art. Yeah.
All right. Another question?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yes, come up. Yeah.
It's more of an observation / question. So I've been knowing this gentleman for at least 10 years, and he's been on the scene doing really some terrific things. And I also want to give the Commonwealth Club a shout out, because the last event that I was here at was actually a lecture on religion and how religion can stop war, because most wars are based on religion. I'm Jacques Talafero. I own La Hit Television or Media. And thanks for having this panel. So we've been involved with conscious art for a long. I see some people are asking me to speak up. I thought I was.
Oh, do you want to use, yeah, why don't you?
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I've been involved with conscious art since I was a teenager. There was really a large black theater movement here, which spawned people like Danny Glover, Whoopi Goldberg, Carl Lunderly, et cetera, et cetera. So even though I was a youngster with Shabaka, who's actually on an CBS sitcom right now, that's pretty big. So I know it's a question. And my question has a prelude because my company, La Hits, how many people have heard of La Hits? Okay, well, how many people have heard of, how many people have heard of YouTube, Facebook, Twitter? Okay, so we started in 2003, which is before any of those companies putting video on the internet. And we again come out of a conscious political art type of thought. I really like what you said about dyslexia because I have dyslexia too, and also Danny Glover has dyslexia. And the reason I found out about that is auditioning at the Magic Theater, and I ran into Danny and he was like, well, I never read the scripts, as in they want you while auditioning to read the script. What I do is I go in early, I get the script from whoever the script supervisor is, and I memorize it, and then I act like I'm reading it. So that was a good hint from him to like, and so there's a lot of people with dyslexia. We just learn different. That's how we learn different. The founder of Virgin Air, etc., he's also dyslexic, so it's right with us. So how can the broader social media help bring this to the broader populace? Because when I was filming here, each one of these people here, all of you great people here, when you're doing this with my camera, each one of you represents 1,000 people that goes out to. So that's why I was doing that. So, my question. We're kind of a Motown of the internet. So how does the internet work in helping this cause go further?
I'll speak to that to start with. One of the things that I did for this program was use the internet for sales, for marketing. And so, you know, not only personal emails, group emails, Facebook, Instagram. So, you know, I kind of brought business and tech and art all together to use various media channels. This will be podcasts, so that's another auditory channel. We're doing a video, and we'll see, that may end up on YouTube. So the challenge is, which channel is most effective? How do you measure that effectiveness? And how do you ensure your message is consistent so it doesn't get contorted like we've seen with some of the fake news and some of the media that's sponsored by Fox News, so to speak.
We're just about out of time, so we have to wrap it up here. I want to thank the panelists, Matt McKinley, Deborah Reebok, and Michael and Shay for joining us this evening and addressing this question. I would also like to thank the audience here and also our listening audience listening to the recording here tonight. It's been a pleasure being your moderator for this program this evening. And now this meeting of the Commonwealth Club of California, commemorating its 116th year of enlightenment discussion, is officially adjourned.
I made it. I know. I flew in last night. I'm generally